connected us. Sometimes I have to stop the live and get going again. If it's buffering or lagging, I mean, we're sat right on top of the router, and sometimes we get little interferences. But hey, it's much better than last week when we completely lost the internet, thanks to Virgin Media and what they did to the junction box outside. Exactly, but never mind. Hey, we're up and running, we're back. So, if you don't know, James Herbert, who we were talking about, is a British writer born in the 1940s, and he died when he was 69 years old. Unfortunately, we lost him way too soon. Absolutely horrific. But what he left us behind is his golden legacy, and the most famous of all his works are the Rat trilogy. And if you want, it's actually really 4 books, because The City, the graphic novel, they're very difficult to get hold of as well, may I say, is like the ultimate in giving us the conclusion we needed for something so wonderful. It really, really was. Oh goody, someone sent me a thumbs up. Thank you so much. It means you can hear me. Thank you very much, my darlings. Let's see, let's hope this connection lasts. With a bit of luck, it will. Anyway, let's talk about his first book, The Rats. And oh my goodness me, when my teacher, and I've talked about it before, when Mrs. Maudsley realised that I had a problem reading, she quickly worked out that I was dyslexic. And although I had been trying to read and reading to a fashion that I was able to understand what was in front of me, I was also really, really struggling with the fact that I only had a reading age of like between 4 and 7 years old at the age of 13, which is not good, especially when you're going to be thinking that we're going into adulthood and I need to get myself prepared for the working world. So Mrs. Maudsley, my darling teacher, she worked out pretty early on that I needed some help. And it's thanks to her that I actually learned to read properly at all. And also, not only did I have dyslexia, I had dyscalculia as well, which is the one where you get your numbers back to front and not your letters. So usually they both go hand in hand. It just means I'm wired up differently. That's all I can say on that matter. And I must be doing okay for myself because I'm running my own business. So I can't be doing too bad. But anyway, I digress. Thanks to Mrs. Maudsley, when I properly learned to read, the first thing I chose to read properly was James Herbert, The Rats. It was the book cover. It just saying The Rats, and then the giant rat sat in front of Tower Bridge, and you just know, right? It's like this level of joy in my heart, and I just thought I have to read this book, and so I did, and I absolutely devoured it. It was everything I ever wanted, because I absolutely adore horror. It's my first love is horror, and apocalyptic horror, right? That I love apocalyptic horror, and it has everything going for it. You've got giant rats attacking London, eating the local residents. It's practically the end of the world. We have an epic battle to get rid of the rats, and it beautifully, the ending is, you just know that there's going to be a sequel, right? It left it open, absolutely stunningly beautiful. And well, shall we start at the beginning? That's always a good place. It's a very unassuming cottage on the side of the canal, and the couple that live there are very quiet, keep themselves to themselves, and as the shopkeeper says, it was a good little job while he had it. Every single week he'd drop off the shopping for the little old man and the little old lady that lived in the canal cottage, and they paid him regularly, and they never saw him and he never saw them, but he was just glad of the business. I wouldn't say he was a bit short, but you know, he's out to make a profit, isn't he? And then one day, he's popped the shopping down, and he pops off and comes back a week later and the shopping's not moved. And he suddenly realises that, oh dear, something must be very wrong. They've not picked anything up and the shopping's just sat there. And it turns out that the residents of the cottage have died. And so the cottage sort of falls into disrepair, and the weeds start to grow up all around it, and nobody goes in it and nobody goes out of it, and you just think it's an unassuming little cottage with a little horrible thing inside. Yeah, the darling, delightful Ratty Rose. But you don't know that right at the beginning. You just think it's, you know, they've passed away. I didn't say how they've passed away. just know that they're not with us anymore. And we'll start with our very first vignette of the travelling salesman who falls hopelessly and madly and deeply in love with his it's sort of like his protege. The lad is training up to do his job. And word gets out at the factory where he was working. You know, he's quite high up as this gentleman as well. It's a good position he had. That he was, you know, and you've got to remember the time this was written in the 1970s, it's not like the culture that we have today, okay? Now it is accepted, but back then, no, it was not. So they made his life a living hell, and the poor lad had to leave. Well, the poor man had to leave, and he ended up working on the dockyards in London, and he didn't have any money, and he'd been made homeless, and he was just basically working so he had enough money so he could go out and basically get alcohol and drink himself to sleep every single night. And he knew he was killing himself doing this, but because of his grief for the boy he fell in love with, and the fact that he can't go back to his own normal life, he just drinks himself into an oblivion. And it's just so sad. It is. And one night, it just so happens that he'd bought some cheap booze and he'd been drinking it and he'd passed out. And he wakes up because something has disturbed him in his sleep. And then he's not entirely sure what it is, but he can hear it squeaking and scurrying. And suddenly there's an almighty sharp pain in his hand. Awful, awful sharp pain. And really, really excruciating. It makes him scream. It makes him, yank his hand back, and he puts his hand to his mouth, and he can taste blood. So he realizes something's bitten him, and he thinks, oh, it must have been a rat, because that's the only thing that could have bitten him. And because the taste of the blood and everything makes him retch, and he's really, 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 really poorly. And it's at this point that he realizes that a rat, he just thinks it's a rat, is in there with him, and is revulsed by the thought of a rat being in there, because rats are quite scary, quite awful. And then suddenly he realizes there's more than one, and then one jumps on him, and he just thinks, flipping heck, that's a big rat. That's a massive rat. And I mean, the sheer terror of just knowing that you've got this ginormous rat and it's jumped on your back. And he thinks, blimey, poor blimey, it must be the size of a small dog. And then there's more than one, and they're just relentless. They're just absolutely brutal, is the best way forward to describe this. And the poor man is screaming and he's throwing himself all over, and he's trying to get these flipping rats off him. And he can feel them chewing him and biting him and ripping his clothes and going for his throat and his legs, and it biting into him, and goes through one of his flipping arteries, and it's like blood is just pouring, it's everywhere. And he's beyond terror now. And then the next minute he can't see anything at all, because the rats are eating his eyes. I mean, this is not for children. This is not for kiddos. So why was I at such a young and tender age reading something like this? I was absolutely hooked. I could not tear my eyes. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the pages. And I just thought, oh yeah, we're at the races. I'm going for gold. I'm reading the rats. And anyway, this poor man, he's bleeding out at this point. His eyeballs have gone. He knows he can't fight him, and he just slips into sweet oblivion. And that is the end of the very first kill in the book, right? The rats have got their first taste of human flesh. Well, unless you count the poor souls that were in the, canal. We'll come back to those people. They are quite important to the entire story. So anyway, that is like the first foray into Ratty Roo is After You. And we're minding his own business. And we have a wonderful art teacher and his students. It's a rundown school. That's where we're going next. We're off to school, everybody. It's probably why I liked it so much, because it was high school, you see, and I was at high school. So maybe I was just hoping that my school would get attacked by rats. You never know. It's a long time ago since I was that young lady. And we go on to the school and we meet a lovely art teacher. Really sweet boy. It's his first proper teaching position, teaching art. And it's a bit of a rundown area, the Docklands of London. It's not really changed much since, it's not had a lot of investment, shall we say, and because of its dereliction, the wildlife, the rats, if you like, they run amok. They do what they want. It's their sort of territory. And it just so happens that the art teacher, one of his students, came in and was like saying, blimey, on my way to school this morning, I saw the biggest rat I've ever seen. It was the size of a dog. And he said, and they ain't scared of nothing. He said, I threw a brick at it and it didn't flinch. I mean, you know, can you imagine the size of a brick and you're wanging it at a rat? and it don't move. You know, something should be sending alarm bells at that point to you, like, this ain't no normal rat, you know. Exactly, you know. It's a London rat for a start, so it's probably, you know, proper, like, really, really tough. Any road. He thinks no more about it, just the fact that he's been told about this rat. And it just so happens one morning that this lad's going to school and he gets bitten by the rat. You know, proper tough nut of a rat, bitten him. And this lad's not feeling right, cracky. He's not very good. So the art teacher thinks, oh blimey, I'll take him down to the local hospital. And so obviously he does, but just in between all that going off, there is the infamous scene with the little dog and the tiny little baby. Now, for some people, this might be a bit too much. Okay, it's shocking, right? Even by today's standard, it's flipping shocking. There's a young mum who is taking care of her newborn baby at home. You know, she's not exactly newborn, she's a few months old now. She can sit in a high chair and you know, do what babies do. And she has a little puppy dog. Now, the mum has run out of sugar and she thinks, oh, I'll just leave my little girl here with the doggy because they get on so well, and I'll just nip next door to my neighbour for a cup of sugar and she'll be absolutely fine. Dun dun dun! Uh-oh, shouldn't have done that. While mummy is gone, the door to the basement is open. Ah, I know, you know what's coming. The little girl was playing and it's the dog that hears the noise. And he knows it's not a friendly noise, and he goes to the top of the stairs and he's barking and he's yowling and he's yapping and he's trying to defend the little baby because he loves her so much. He adores his little friend. And oh, what that poor dog has to endure. Any road. By the time the mother comes back, the floor is a seething mass of black bristled bodies crawling all over the now deceased dog, and the little girl is literally awful. It's very hard to describe, but the mother is hysterical. She charges straight in, grabs the baby, what's left of it, and she's attacked herself by the rats, and she is hysterical. The neighbours from the end of the street, on the other street, can hear her screaming, and they all come rushing up. There's people there, they're trying to help her, they're trying to defend her, they're trying to get rid of the rats, and the poor woman, absolutely, she's entered the twilight zone. This woman is not coming back, and she's carted off to the hospital and put under some heavy sedation because of the horrific attack that she's been through herself, and also because they just know that the shock of what's happened to her child, and let alone the family pet, is just that will be enough to tip her over the edge and kill her. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just absolutely relentless, this James Herbert, for his first novel. I mean, just genius. It's next level genius. It's wonderful. It is horror, apocalyptic horror at its finest. It really is. And you can see why when anyone ever mentions James, instantly thinking the rats, right? And the vignettes that you get within the novel, I mean, it's like stories within stories, but they all loop round and they all interconnect. And James has mastered the art of a small vignette in between the actual meat of the story, and it's just amazing. It really is. The next little vignette that you'll get, and I don't really want to spoil the entire book for you, because obviously I want you to read it. You know, it's a classic. It's classic horror. It should be up there with Dracula and Frankenstein. It's such a classic horror, you know. And you can see over the years, Stephen King and James, you know, James Herbert, had sort of like, he was always marketed as the British version of Stephen King. But to my mind, I mean, and Stephen King writes some flipping gruesome stuff. I just think, forgive me for saying this, because I know there's a lot of Stephen King fans out there, as I am one of them. I just find that maybe it's because I'm British as well. I just find that James' viciousness was a little bit more guttural. You know, it's just, maybe it's just a British thing, but I just find James was a little bit more brutal. Ambitious, yeah, definitely. Anyway, no, I'll tell you about this one. The woman is an alcoholic, and she lives rough, and she lost the man she loved during the war, and never really got over the fact that she lost him, the love of her life. They were to be married, and he was killed, and she couldn't quite manage it. And she's a lovely lass, all the way from Ireland, and she liked everything and anything to do with the men in her life, and that's usually paid for the booze. Okay, so I mean, that's the best kindest description I can do for the lovely young lady from Ireland who ended up with a couple of other tramps that were living on this rubble building, like it's like a bomb site really. A lot of the writing that James is writing, area that James is writing about is where London's been still showing damage from the Blitz, because it's not that long since the war. If you think about it, 1945 was when the war finished, and he's writing about this in 1974, 75. So you're only, 55, 65, you're talking 30 years after the war's finished, 25, 30 years after the war's finished. And at the time, London was still very much looking like the Blitz, and it hadn't had a lot of investment. I mean, they were investing, don't get me wrong, but it was going to be a while before the Docklands were up and running. And James writes about that so well. He writes a lot about the poverty of London, and that's what makes it a bit grim, a bit seedy, a bit vicious, and it's all coming out. It's like proper social commentary of the time. We're talking, that's nearly 50 years ago now. If James was still alive, I wonder if we'd have got another Rats novel. Well, we may have, we may not have. I don't know. But anyway, this lady, who was been heavily drinking that night, ends up with the people that she's on the rubbish, like bombed out part of London, ends up, the rats are really at the races now, and she's at rat food. To put a finer point on it, she turns into rat food. So do the gentlemen that are living rough with her as well. And the rats are really starting to cause a problem. And rat killing companies are popping up all over London to get rid of the menace. But I don't think the residents of London realise, nor does the government at this point, realise just what a flipping problem these rats are. And they're as big as dogs, and they're not hundreds of them, there's thousands of them, there's millions of these little things running around London, all looking for the next meal. And it ain't going to be just the local pigeons, cats and dogs. No, they're after us. And as you're reading through the book, and you're left thinking, blimey, good grief. Could it get any worse? Oh, hold your cups of teas, everybody. Yes, it can. And it does. We end up with the teacher. He's not disappeared. And he's feeling pretty upset because, unfortunately, due to the rat bite, the young student that was, bitten, the one he took to hospital, has died, along with the mother and the little baby girl that was already dead when she was taken into the hospital. And it seems that these rats, not only are they the most vicious apex predator running around London, they've also got something in their bite which is killing whoever it is that they bite. It's just absolutely fatal. There's no known cure, and well, if they don't eat you up and all they do is bite you, you're just going to wish they had eaten you, because you're not going to survive anyway. And the government sort of like twig that something's not quite right. Hey, I'll go to the foot of our stairs. What could it be? And they go off with the teacher. Oh, I mustn't forget to tell you this one. And it's the last sort of spoiler I'm going to give you. The school, right? All the students are in the school, and it's like that scene from Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, when all the students are in the classroom and all the birds go and sit on the climbing frame outside. Well, this is no different, but they're all rats. Is to say it is slightly different because the rats are sat in the playing ground. You know, they ain't got wings, they've got tails and teeth. And they're sort of like eyeballing students, and students are like, it's okay, sir, I'll do detention, I won't leave the classroom. You know, it's one of those situations. I'll be good. What was that? You want me to write 1,000 lines on the blackboard? I will not look at the rats. Not, right? Yep, that's exactly what we're going to do. You know, kids are actually begging to be caned at this point so they don't have to go outside into the playground where these rats are. You know, it's that awful. And they sort of realise that they must be pouring up from somewhere, and the art teacher realises and tells the headmaster they're coming from the basement downstairs. We'll have to try and warn the caretaker. Oh, that poor man, that poor caretaker. Sad times. This is very, very sad. They realise that a rat-a-roo is coming up through the basement of the school, and they must be getting in because we're very close to the canals and the docklands, and you know, oh dearie me, you know, it's one of those points where, you know, it would have been all over. If this had happened in today's day and age, it would have been an absolute lockdown. Every child would have been locked into the classrooms, and we'd have had parents outside going absolutely out of their tiny minds, thinking, oh, my child's in there. My child. Please don't eat my child. Well, I know I would be. I'd be absolutely hysterical if my children were in there. Oh, dearie me. Anyway, they kind of realise that there's, you know, one way that we're going to have to get these rats out, and they have to flood the basement. They have to flood it. Drown them. You know, rats can swim, everybody! And they can swim a long way, and these beastly things, you know, not only can they swim, they could command and commandeer a boat and drive that down, you know, down the River Thames at this rate. Any road. They manage to flood the basement of the you know, the school, and we'll get the kids out, and everything's going to be fine. And oh man, that was just absolutely terrifying. And there's more terrifying things which I'm not going to tell you about because obviously I want you to read the book, but they're just amazing. And let's just say they devised a plan, a cunning plan, to get rid of the rats. And first of all, it's implied that they tried to poison them, but it would seem that the poison doesn't seem to have any effect on them, you know, because they seem to be immune. Why? Why are these rats so powerful, so superhuman, and seem impervious to any form of rat poison? Anything. They're gobbling it up like it's candy. You know, chocolate bars. It's chocolate bars to these rats. Are like thinking, bring on some more. Like, you know, it's not even touching me. And you find out that somebody who's higher up knows all about these rats. And the look of disbelief on the poor art teacher's face, and he's like, you mean to tell me you've known about this all along and you just didn't think that, you know, hello, it was kind of important that you told someone? And they're like, yeah, well, you know, it's on a need-to-know basis, and this is a compartmental issue. Compartmental this. So they have the Herculean job of getting rid of the rats because the plan that they devised didn't work. And literally London is at this point overrun by these mutant rats. They're much bigger than their counterpart, the brown rats, and they seem to have dominated that species to the point where that brown rat, there isn't really any of them left. It's just these ginormous behemoth of giant black rat, and they are in their thousands, and they're all seen to be emanating back from the canal where they were first spotted. And it seems like there's like a hierarchy of rats. There's like a bit like bees, where you've got your soldiers, your workers, and then you've got your queen bee. Well, there's no different with the rats. You got your worker rats, which are a little bit smaller. Then you've got your soldier rats, which are a bit beefier, and then you've got your absolutely hunker chunks, which are like top tier rat. You know, that's the best way I can describe them. And the top tier rats seem to be protecting the queen rat, the one where all the rats have come from. And let's just say the people that lived in the cottage, and I'm trying not to spoil this for you, the people that live in the cottage knew all about this, for they were part of this government department. Honestly, tell me it's tell me it's a government-run department, but yeah, you see where I'm coming from? You know, to this day, I've never quite understood the level of mentality of why anybody in Whitehall would think that this was a good idea, right? As an experiment, as a thought experiment, and it should have just stayed as a thought experiment, but oh no, they had to go one better. It's like one step beyond. Oh my goodness me, what were they thinking? Here we are, getting ready for Armageddon of London, right? We're literally, there's more rats than humans at this point. And these people that were staying in the cottage were directly, shall we say, working for the government, and they were very scientific in nature. And there's an almighty battle at the end of the rats. And quite frankly, are they really dead? Everybody seems to think so. Everybody's sort of like, oh, crikey, Mildred, I'm glad that's over. Would you like a cup of tea and a hobnob biscuit? And that's kind of what we go back to. And this sort of uneasy drift that we go into at the end of the book, and we know, unbeknownst to the residents of London, but knownst to the rest of us who are reading this book, we know that there is something very, very wrong, and it isn't over. And then it fades into darkness. Right? Cue Ratty-Roo number 2, the Squeakquel. Yes, we are going to do The Lair. That is the second innings into James Herbert The Rats. You know what you're getting, but you just want a little bit more, don't you? Oh yes you do, because you just can't help yourself. You're so excited, you're thinking, oh, but I just love the rats. And now we get The Lair? Several years have passed. London seems to have gone back to its usual happy, skippy little self. They talk about it, but in hushed tones of, and we survived the Blitz, we survived the rats. You know, we're made of strong stuff, those British people. And everybody's having a lovely time. But as the poem stated at the front of the book, yeah, I can't repeat it because it's on live, but you'll have to find it in the book. But if you also are very interested in any of the rats, I have done many reviews on the rats because I love the rats. I can't get enough of the rats. Rats is what we do. As you can see, I'm very enthusiastic about the rats. We are down in Epping Forest. I will probably say Epping Forest so many times that it sounds, you just need to hear The Lair. The book review I did on The Lair. And I think I was so tired when I was doing it that Epping Forest sounded like I was saying Epping Forest. Not all as it seems. People start finding things, very strange things. There is a farmer who finds what's left of his barn cats, thinking the animal had got caught up in machinery because it finds a paw. Now, for cat lovers like me, this is a bit, Toodles has been munched. You know, and you're just like totally heartbroken at this point. Absolutely heartbroken. But we're going to continue because, you know, you can't tear your eyes away from something like this. It's one of those books that grabs you by the back of the throat and says you're going to read it. Said and done. So once you get over the mild shock that Tiddles has become lunch, you start to follow where the farmer's going, and he finds a little bit more of the cat, and a little bit more, and then he finds, and he just thinks, that's not machinery. That's not machinery that's got our pulse. Because he realises from how he finds the animal that it had been fighting and it had been trying to defend itself, poor darling. And he realises it's been eaten by wildlife, and he thinks it's a fox. A fox? Yeah, I suppose. But there's other things that are going very, very wrong. Like the family of stoats. Now we know, well, you may not know, but stoats are wild animals. Yeah, they live, part of the mink family, they live out there in the woods, and they do stoaty things, and they eat local wildlife. So they are vicious, okay? They've got teeth and claws, just like the rats. And when a family of them have been found slaughtered in their den by the local gameskeeper, something is like ding dong, alarm bells must be ringing at this point, something is clearly not right in Epping Forest. So I'm really, really concentrating on saying Epping and not something else. And the head gamekeeper is out riding one day on his horse, and something spooks her, and she just goes, red mist comes down, running full pelt, and she's terrified as this horse. And bearing in mind he was just going for a little trot, and she goes on and does the music to Black Beauty must be playing somewhere, because she goes off on a full-on gallop, and it's like 0 to 60 with no brakes. If you've ever been on a horse, I have, and you've gone from trotting to canter to gallop, right, that's a natural progression, but this was just like a pew and straight off. This guy got no warning, and he was just like, hold on, this is gonna be a rough one. So off he takes, galloping off to the horizon, and he's thinking, oh my goodness me, she's gonna kill me. And he's like, what on earth could have spooked the horse that badly that she was actually trembling? And that, when you see a horse trembling, it's had a fright. It really has. And she's hurt her front leg. She's gone a bit lame because she tripped on a little divot in the ground, just a. And that's the problem when you're galloping out in the countryside. You've got to make sure that you're actually on a proper bridle path, or somewhere that you can at least make an assessment of the floor, because tree roots, divots in the ground are absolutely lethal, and if your horse should stumble on that, you're going flying, and you might end up underneath the horse, and worse still, the horse might fall and it might break a leg, and that's not good for the horse. It really isn't. So that's what this guy was terrified of. And after he'd stopped, he looks up and he sees the rarest thing he's ever seen in Epping Forest. I'm really emphasizing that I'm saying Epping, okay? Because we don't want to say anything else that we shouldn't be doing. And he looks up anyway and sees a rare white stag. And he just says, well, first of all, what's the deers and the stags doing so far down? Because they have a special reserved cart in Epping Forest. And I know this is just going to be a joke, isn't it? And every time she says it, she's like, enunciation, girls. We have to make sure we're saying the right word. But he sees this rare white stag, and it's puzzled him because a rare white stag like that hasn't been seen in over 50 years. And it's usually a harbinger of doom. Do you need any more signs that say something's really wrong in Epping Forest? But unbeknownst to the poor characters in the book, but knowns to all of us, we know what they don't know, and it is absolutely terrifying at this point. So, he makes a note. Deers are in wrong place. Family of Stokes, dead. Rare white stag. And he starts doing a little bit of pottering about and a little bit of digging. Sometimes, just sometimes, you just wish that you'd never looked, right? Well, this is what this guy's starting to realise. He's beginning to wish he'd never looked. Now, I will give you one of the vignettes, and it happens to be one of my favourites. And it involves the vicar of the local church. Previously, there had been a funeral for an old lady, and her grave was freshly dug and waiting to be obviously backfilled by the grave diggers, because her funeral had been the day before. And he just so happens to be walking through his church, and he hears something. And I mean, it's enough to make the hairs on the back of your neck start to go, you know, twitch, twitch. And then he feels as though something's watching him. And he's starting to get like, he's proper getting frightened now. He's like, the willies are there. He's scared, and he's starting to think, oh, praise be to the Lord. Watch over me and make sure I don't, you know, what is it that's scaring me so? And he just gets rushed. There's no other way to describe it. This poor man of God is rushed by these ginormous rats. And the guy's screaming, and he's terrified, and he's throwing himself, and he's trying to get away from him, and they're jumping all over him. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. This poor man is going to be rat food. Absolutely rat food. And he tries and he tries and he tries to escape from them. They're jumping all over him. They're running up his legs and arms. They're on his back. They're running all around him, and he trips over and he falls head first into open grave. I mean, blimey, does that just not scare the living what's-its out of you? So he thinks, oh no, I'm in the grave. Ah, they're going to eat me all. Help, help, help. He's jumping and he's screaming, and oh my gosh, every time he puts his hands up to try and pull himself out the grave, and they're biting into his fingers, and they're biting his fingers off, and the poor man is just like, he can't get out now, he ain't got any flipping fingers to grip hold at the side of the grave. And he's in there and he can feel them running around him. And then, oh, that feeling when he realises that they're bitten into him and they're in him. They're actually inside him. And there's just the fear of, oh, what? And he knows that they're chewing him out from the inside and they're eating all his major internal organs, and they're crawling up and they're getting up to the back of his head. And oh, this is the worst bit. He wants to know why he ain't dead yet, because he knows that he's dying, but he just wants to know why his body refuses to die. You know, and there's nothing. He realises he's not going to get away. He's not going to escape. There's no chance of him ever surviving this one, and he just wants to know why can I not die? and he realises that he can feel them, and they're going up to the back of his head, and he can feel them chewing his brain. I mean, just not fill you full of dread. You know, not only are you worried about being buried alive and you've got no fingers to be able to grip to pull yourself out the grave, and you're teeming with rats and they're all over you, and they're chewing your insides, and they're crawling up your spine, and they're chewing, and they're getting to the back of your head. And the man died in he was insane by the time he'd gone. And wow. And that's probably the only one I'm really going to tell you about. I don't want to spoil it for you. That is the one. Look out for the vicar. Right? So again, how on earth, after we were told by our beloved government that all the rats were gone, how come they're alive and well and, shall we say, very well fed in Epping Forest? I know I'm really, really conscious that I'm saying that right. It's just, you know, I dare not. How come they are there? Well fed, very happy, organised, and breeding like there's no tomorrow. Don't tell me our beloved government thought it might be another good, really, really great idea, like, to maybe keep some of them. And what on God's green earth could possibly have made them think that that was a good idea? But we continue. We do. We continue, and we are now a good chunk of the way through the book. And the people that have been sent to kill the rats are like, well, first of all, there was a policy within London that came from on high, from the government, that said no door to any basement was supposed to be shut, because obviously that's where the rats were hiding, and failure to leave your door unlocked was a hefty fine and imprisonment. But be that as it may, somebody decided that they thought it would be a very good idea to leave their cellar door shut. What a massive mistake to make. The rats were not eliminated, as we kind of thought they wouldn't be. And we now have another Herculean effort, do we not, to get rid of Ratty-Roo number 2. Yes, as I said, it is the Squeakquel. Do you know how long I've been waiting to say that? Too long. So there we are. We are going into battle with all the rats from hell in Epping Forest. There we go. I said it, yeah? Oh, see? I'm not saying the other word. The word I nearly said. You'll have to see my long form, the lair, to work out what I was actually saying. I was very, very tired on that day, I can tell you. You know, it's nearly a year since I did that. It's May last year that I did that. When we were doing May Mayhem. Yeah. So there we go, the more you know. So we have the Herculean effort to get rid of all these massive rats. And they're bigger than the last lot. So they're being more modified, more enhanced. I mean, you know, who in their right mind, I ask you, who in their right mind would have honestly thought it was a flipping good idea, nay, genius idea? We're going to make them bigger and badder and better. Does not make sense, but they did. Hang on a minute. 6, 7, 8. Just have to make sure that we had the right number up there. And we do. 10. Make sure, did I turn? I turned the iron off. Good. That's all right then. I just need to sit down. And anyway, we have the most amazing epic battle. And it is like, you know, boom, boom, shake the room. There wasn't anything left unturned. There are things exploding and fires and squealing rats and squealing humans because they're on fire too, and everybody's on fire and everyone's running around going, wah! You know, these rats are gonna get us all. Excuse me one moment, I just need to do something for a customer. And they're running around and they're screaming and they're carrying on and everybody's absolutely flipping terrified, and it's just Armageddon in Epping Forest. Yes, it is. There we go. Want to make sure I get the right person. Otherwise, I've made a very ding-dong of a mistake. And I don't think people will be very pleased with me. There we go. I love working for myself. Where else can I get to act like this? So anyway, we have the most epic ding-dong of a battle. I mean, everybody's running around like the hair's on fire, mostly because it is. And we are working out the easiest, quickest way to get rid of the rats. And when our two protagonists have finished knocking 7 bells out of each other because they're both arguing over the same woman, I mean, you know, the future of mankind is at stake here, gentlemen, and you're worrying about which one of you she loves. Could we just not get rid of the rats first? You can settle your differences outside in the car park like men afterwards, but hello, we've got a massive problem in Epping Forest. Yes, we do. And could we please get rid of that first? And then fill your boots, gents. Go outside and settle it like men in the car park. But until you've got rid of the rats, then, you know, that's what we'll have to do. But the look on their faces when they realise that they've been nay, they have not just been double-crossed, they have been triple-crossed with tartan paint. They have absolutely no idea what's waiting for them. And when they realise who it was that's double-crossed them, it's just like red mist comes down. They forget all about the woman. Suddenly they become, I wouldn't say they were best friends, but at least they've realised that they've got a common goal, which is getting rid of the ratty roos. And shall we just say, it is full-on Armageddon. Yeah, as the saying goes, Armageddon out of here. But, you know, they couldn't do that until they got rid of the rats. And they have the fight to end all fights. It is legendary. It is up there with the Battle of Britain, or shall we say, when Henry V and the Battle of Agincourt. You know, we're talking that level of like pew pew and with the rats and you know, boom 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 and blowing everything up. And you hope that's the end of it, because there can't be, surely not. Flipping Nora, there can't be any more of them, surely. And you think, oh lads, you're done us proud, you awesome, you got rid of them. Or have they? And I will be back with Domain after I've sorted this lot, because I just kind of need to just concentrate for 30 seconds, or else I'm going to make a really big mistake, and I don't want to do that. Nobody wants a mistake, and neither do I. I'm very, very good at my job. I'd like to think I was very good at my job. Okay, and we are going to let that. We're going to run a backup system now, because if we don't, I'll forget to do it later, and that won't be cool. I'll be back in a minute. I told you I would be back, and I am. And now I can't get into it. There we are. That's one. Right. Pop these where they need to go so we can free up. There we go. That's one down, one to go. Yeah, we are. We're on a roll, kids. We're on a roll. Where we're going to end up, nobody knows. That's got to go with me. everybody, hello. But I have to go because I've got to put that back next door. Did you miss me? I bet you did. Well, I am here for the duration. Ooh, fancy. Now we need some hangers because they ain't gonna hang themselves. There we go. Here we go, here we go. Lots of hangers to go and show. So, we got to the end, or did we? Yes, here we are. The rats, the lair. Welcome to the domain. Yes, our third installment in the Rats trilogy is Domain. Many years have passed since the original attacks in the Rats and the attacks in the lair, and people talk in hushed tones of the disasters that went on, and I'm very grateful that perhaps things aren't so bad. Hold my teacup. Yes, things are bad. Things are, as I used to say as a child, it's worser. And it gets worser and worser and worser. Worser is not a word, my mother would say. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it is. If I say so, it is. And believe me, I'm going to use that word now. It gets worser and worser and worser. It really does. And badderer and badderer and badderer than that. That was my other word that I was told was not a word. But in my world, it is a word. And it's a word I use. I mean, if I'm turning round to you and I say, it's the worstest I've ever seen it and the badderest I've ever known. Those are words that I use and I'm proud of them. So I defy anyone to tell me that they're not words. There we go. Anyway, with the attacks having happened a few years ago, the other things have taken precedence, shall we say, over the minds of the inhabitants of the United Kingdom, and mostly of the residents of London. We're living in very troubled times, and everyone is thinking about the oil crisis that is happening out in the Middle East, and the fact that everybody is at everybody's throats, that the President of the United States of America is at odds with the rest of the world and Europe. Hey, does that not sound a bit familiar? I wonder. That better be on a bit that sounds familiar. That's all I'm saying. And we're all wondering, because we're all sitting on a knife edge here, people. We are. We're all looking round. wondering what shoe is going to fall next. Everyone seems to be a little trigger happy. It's a beautiful day in June. Yes, a very unspecific day. We don't know the date, should I say, but we do know that it was a Tuesday. And what a Tuesday that Tuesday was, because London gets not one, not two, and not three, but five megatons. Yes, nuclear war is declared on the United Kingdom, and the vignettes at the beginning of Domain are just sublime. They really are. James had a beautiful way of writing. He could make you feel the terror that is. We know that nuclear warheads are heading towards us. There's absolutely no chance in hell that we are going to survive this, and it's our last fleeting moments of our lives, whether we will be worrying about our husbands, our wives, our children, the current circumstances to which we find ourselves. Crikey, even prostitutes get an outing in this one, and it's how they accept to meet their maker, and James writes about it in such poetic, beautiful writing. He gives cause and justice to all the characters. He might only write 2 or 3 pages of this character before they ultimately get killed off, but he writes about them in such a way that you really feel that you know the person, and even though you've only got to know them in like a couple of pages, you feel as though you've known them for a very long time, and that is a gift of a writer, to be able to make you feel such a connection in such a short period of time. And I just think it's so beautifully done. It really is, and not many writers can do that. So that's one of the things that made James basically who he was, which was a famous horror writer. And he's just, honestly, I don't understand sometimes why Domain gets, for some people, Domain is their least favourite of the Rats trilogy, but for me, I love them all equally. It's like asking me to pick my favourite child. I can't do it because I love them all. Each one has its own uniqueness about it that just makes it absolutely unputdownable. And so we get to meet these darling characters, even if it's just for a couple of pages, and it's what's going through their minds, lives, whatever, as the bombs start to land upon the United Kingdom, of which several land in London and the rest up and down the country. Believe me, even Yorkshire isn't spared. I will say, spoiler, We do find out who it was that nuked us, and would you believe it was China? Thanks, China. What on earth did we ever do to you? It doesn't matter. We're gone. Finito, benito. That's us. Fried to a crisp. Thanks very much. Now, do you think them rats are dead? I don't know, but we're going to find out. Of course they're not dead. This is our government we're talking about. And you know what I really, really like about all that they're talking about within the government is, you know damn well they're talking about Margaret Thatcher. You do. It's so obvious. We're dealing with the government of the day, which was in the 80s. It was Margaret Thatcher's government, and you just the little nods, the little nuances that are going towards Mad Maggie. Yes, she is like the poster child, for the poster woman, should I say, for what not to do in a crisis. Absolutely. And it seems that unbeknownst, I'll say this again, unbeknownst to our characters in the book, but knowinst to all of us, we know that these rats were not eliminated. They have not been exterminated as we thought they had been. No, no, no. Another government-run program brought to you by yours truly. Deep, deep underground in London. Far, far underground, below the underground tube station, is a government-run laboratory. Go to the foot of our stairs. Can't see anything going wrong now here, can you, kids? Hold on to that thought. Not only has the United Kingdom been nuked and destroyed, and everybody's running around with radiation poisoning, and all our hair is falling out. If you didn't think that that was bad enough, the rats have inherited the earth. Yes, they certainly have. And you know something else that's really interesting right now? They are absolutely immune to nuclear fallout. Yes. Can you believe it? We have engineered these rats to such an extent that not only are they the beefiest, the bossiest, apex predator that the world has ever seen, they are now immune to radiation poisoning. You couldn't make it up. You could not make it up. Yeah. Not only are we now running around London trying to find shelter, trying to find food, trying to not die of radiation poisoning, we now are chief on the food, on the menu. Yes, we've had it. We've absolutely had it. And what makes it even worse is the poor survivors that were in a government-run bunker which was hidden underneath where the London Underground is, there is an entrance to one of the bunkers, and the poor souls that are in there are all sort of like shaken up. They're all grieving for all the family members that they've gone and lost, and for the way of their life is no more. The world has shot itself in both feet and have decided that, you know, has awarded most of the population of the United Kingdom the DCM, which means don't come Monday or any other day for that matter. They're now thinking, oh my goodness me, we're going to have to try and survive in this brave new world, and how on earth are we going to do that when there's nothing left out there for us to actually live in the brave new world? And then all of a sudden, the lad who rescues the young lady, he thinks she's the most beautiful thing in the universe, and naturally so, we have a leading man and a leading lady, and he's like, hey baby, I'm gonna save you and the rest of the world. And she's like, oh thank you, this sent me a strong man. And the romance ensues as much as it can in a nuclear blasted London with killer ginormous ratty roos running around. I don't know how they found the time for it, but they do. Kudos to them too, definitely. Anyway, we go off on an epic battle of survival throughout the streets of London and the bunkers of London, in the hope that we will not only survive the radiation fallout and escape London, that we will also escape the rats. But the rats now know that they've got the upper hand, and that is the scariest part of the book, is realizing they know that we are weakened. Not only do they know that we're weakened, they now know that they're the boss. And this is when they're, pardon me, but this is where we really get to see their teeth. We really do. There are many wonderful vignettes within the novel, as we have come to expect from James, because that's what he does so well, is the vignette. They're beautiful, short, 2 or 3 pages, like I say, of where we get to meet a character, feel as though we know them, and then he bobs them off, right? And I'm going to tell you about which one? The one with the dog. Yes. He seems to like dogs, does James. And there we are with a family that have made a makeshift bunker downstairs in the basement. That in itself is a bit of a red flag. But we're going to go with it because that's why they've decided to build their bunker. It's a hideout that himself, his wife, his son, and his elderly mother are all hiding in while we're waiting for the radiation to drop. We're waiting for the radiation to drop to an acceptable level that won't actually kill us on, breathing in the first 5 minutes. And we're waiting for that all clear moment that we can go outside. If anyone remembers Protect and Survive, It was what I grew up with in the 80s, and it was right at the peak of the Cold War, and it's what we had, a pamphlet. It blows my mind that we thought that growing up in the 80s, we got these wonderful pamphlets that told us exactly what to do if they decided to light one up. I mean, what can go? We've got a policy for that. I've got my pamphlet. I am nuclear war ready. Right? You, me, and everybody else that lives out across the United Kingdom have all got these pamphlets. We've also got these wonderful little television sort of 2 or 3 minutes worth of information programs, Protect and Survive. If you don't know, I think they may still be up somewhere on YouTube. I suggest you watch them, because this is what we had to do, right? No word of a lie. These were the instructions given to us from on high of how to survive. I'm really glad it never happened. I mean, one of the things that was in the pamphlet was, due to the bombs going off, you may notice a little bit of disruption to the banking system. You what? I might notice a bit of disruption to the banking system. Well, I can rest easy now knowing that my checks aren't going to get cashed on that day. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness me. I can rest easy now, can't I? Absolutely. You know, the postal service may be disrupted. Oh, really? Wow. Oh, thank you for letting me know on that one, because, you know, I really was worried that my letters weren't going to get through. You know, and it was useful information like that. I mean, no word of a lie, children. Yes, I'm not joking. We had a 4-minute warning, thanks to RAF Fylingdale, which is out Whitby way on the North Yorkshire Moors. We got 4 fabulous minutes in which we had to fill the bath full of water, fill the kitchen sink and any other sink that we may have had in the house full of water. Then we had to take all the doors off the hinges and make an A-frame style lean-to, and then get black bin liners, because it couldn't be anything else. It had to be black bin liners full of anything that we could get, maybe the cushions off the sofa. We had to put cushions off the sofa into the black bin liners, and the black bin liners had to go stack all the way up the side of this frame. And then you had to get a family of 4 to sit inside and wait for the bomb. Oh yeah, before you could do that, you had to get your white paint and your paintbrush, and you had to paint your windows white, because it was like that will deflect the heat of the bomb. I'm not joking. So that's what this poor family in this in James's novel were basically doing. I know. So not only have they built their lean-to shelter with cushions off the sofa, black bin liners and doors that they've taken off the hinges, and don't forget to paint your windows white to deflect the heat of the blast. What they failed to mention was that you wouldn't have any windows anyway, because they'll have been blown out and blown to smithereens. But never one to shy away from a problem, us Brits. We take it on the chin, and that's what we decide we're going to do. Happiness, brought to you by Dulux Paint and their brushes. Yes. So here they are. hiding out in the basement and waiting for the all clear to come from the government to tell them that the radiation has dropped to an acceptable level and that they will be all right and that they can go out and resume their daily lives. Can't see anything wrong with that, can you? Now, because there wasn't a lot of room in the shelter, the dad didn't let the family dog go with them, and he left her outside, and she knows that her family is down in the basement and she won't go. And the dad thought that maybe the dog might have been dead by now through radiation poisoning. He just didn't have time, and they didn't have the food or the resources to take on feeding the dog as well. But the dog, being as loyal as she was, didn't want to leave her family, and she stayed outside and just waited for them to come out of the basement, basically, the poor little darling. And it just so happens that that particular night, the poor doggy she smells and hears the rats, and she knows that her family is in danger. And that poor little doggy barks and whines and cries and yelps and warns her owner, the man, and she wants them all to wake up and get out and be safe, because they're coming into the basement are the rats. And the man's yelling at the dog to go because he doesn't want his young son to hear, because the young son had forgotten about the dog because of the bombs going off, and he was all frightened and had forgotten all about the dog. And then suddenly the son hears the dog crying, and he's begging his father to let the dog come in. And the man is like, the dog's not coming in. It's not coming in. The dog can't come in. And the dog is trying to warn you, you silly sod, that you're all in mortal danger. But the man, thinking that the dog's only crying because it wants to come in, because that's where they are, didn't realise that the dog was actually trying to save his life, even after it being treated so poorly. The dog's duty still is to protect the family. And this is when all hell breaks loose, because the man now has to leave the shelter, and the rats now know that they were right and that they could smell fresh meat. Fresh, untainted meat, because the family had been in their underground shelter and, of course, had not been irradiated. And the rats are thinking, oh, huzzah, everybody, huzzah, we've found fresh meat and it is not irradiated. Oh, come this way. Yes, we've found food, everybody. And the slaughter begins. The slaughter begins, and the man realizes in his dying breath that all the dog was doing was trying to warn them. And the dog is frantic outside on the landing, and she can hear her whole family being eaten alive by the rats, and the poor animal is going insane because she can't get in, she can't get through the door to help protect the family, and the poor animal is going absolutely insane with grief and terror at the thought of what's happening to a family. And it's such a beautiful vignette. It really, really is. It's probably one of the most vicious and heartbreaking scenes in Domain, and it really is absolutely horrendous. I mean, it's a particularly dark book. Of all the three, I would say Domain is the darkest of them all. It is. It is truly, truly remarkable, the depths of depravity that book goes to. You see, you thought you were having a bad day. You thought it was bad enough that the nuclear bombs had gone off. And then you find that the government, unbeknownst to you, has decided that they thought it'd be better if they not only saved a few of the rats from Epping Forest, that they would bring them back to London, genetically modify them a little bit further, and then say, oh, to hell with the expense, let's get bombed out of our brains as well. You know, you really couldn't make it up. So, here we are. The poor people that are in the government, that's just one of the little vignettes, by the way, the dog one. Just, it's not related to anything else within the story. It's just a story within the story. And James does that so well. He really does. So we need to go back to Mr. Super Duper Hero and the lady that's glad she's got him. Oh, I love you, I love you. We've only got a few hours to save the world, but I love you. And he's like, yeah, baby, I'm going to save the world, and I'm going to save you whilst I'm at it. Oh, hooray, huzzah, everyone's going to be great. Or are they? They go off on an epic road trip from hell, realising that their bunker is now being destroyed. You know, they can't stay there, it's not safe. Yes, they are in a very compromising position. It's so much fun, such fun. And they have to go and search for another safe bunker. And one of the government workers, that is a civil servant actually, says he knows of another safe bunker where the government, as in the top brass, will have gone to stay. And he said, I suggest we make our way over there. And they're like, top banana, can't believe it, there's another bunker, yes please, sign me up. And off they trot. And they go off and battle their way through London, fighting off marauding gangs, the rats, the radioactive poisoned peoples, and fight for their rights to get into the next bunker. And what awaits them at the next bunker is the stuff of nightmare fuel. It really is. There is not a lot left of any bugger. They are sat at their command posts with bite marks all over them, and some of them are chewed right down to the bone. Yes, I mean, they suddenly realise, oh, Ecky Thump, what are we going to do? The rats got in here too. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. There we are. These, oh, hold that thought. I will be back in a minute. Here I am back, my dears. I am back. So, we got to the part, the epic part, where we're back in an underground bunker and everybody's been eaten. There's not a stick left of human food or anything else. We've dealt with rabid dogs, rabid cats, and rabid rats, and rabid human beings. And it's at this point that the hero of the hour, hey, Mr. Marvelous, Mr. Universe, and the female that loves him, oh, hello, I love you, I love you. Yes, it's about this point that those two think, we are absolutely cooked. There is nothing left. We're just going to have to accept the fact that we're not going to get out of this alive. And she said, I don't know, we'll call him Hank, right? And we'll just give him that. But Hank, you promised me you were going to save me. And it's like, I'm going to give him a Yorkshire accent now, but it's definitely a London lad. We go, hey, love, I did say I'd try. But Hank, you promised. You know, it's a bit one of those moments. It really is. So he's feeling a bit, oh, she won't fancy me now, like, if I don't like save her. And she's like, of all the men I could have chosen, I had to pick you. You know, you can see it playing out. Here we are. And there's other people running around. And they're looking at them as if to say, do you know, we've got bigger problems than you two having a teeth. Yeah, we've got to get out. We've got to get out. We've got to run. We've got to get away from the rats. You know, you two can have your little lovers' teeth later on. But right now, we've got to escape. And those rats are really big and they're looking at us as if to say, fresh meat, and not a bit of radiation on them. You know, suddenly you're starting to feel as though you're on the menu in more ways than one. They are running. Guess where they're running? Yep. On the past the Tower Bridge, heading back to the flipping Docklands, where we all started this problem in the original book, The Rats. We've gone full circle. We have. We've gone absolutely right back to the beginning. And we have an epic escape. And we are escaping the rats and the poor girl, oh my goodness me. She gets chewed. She gets bitten. And he's not feeling right good at this point because he's had a munch or two taken out of him. And they're trying to get towards the boats. And do they escape down the River Thames to sweet, sweet freedom? You're going to have to read the book, darlings, and find out, because I'm not going to tell you. You have to read these books. If you've never heard of James Herbert, You have now, my darlings. You have now. And you have. These, I would say, these are in my top 100 books that you've got to read before you die. They are an experience in terror. And if you, like me, are not too fond of Ratty Rose and find things like this pure nightmare fuel, you know, this you've got to read. You have to read these books. They are absolutely sublime. There's nothing out there quite like the Rats. They are unique. There isn't. Many people have tried to copy him, and you know, they do say that imitation is the best form of flattery, but nobody has quite mastered the art of the Chew Crew, the absolute eating, meaty, killing machine. Ratty Rose are after yous. Oh my goodness. There's nothing out there quite like it, and I don't really think there ever will be. I just find them the most unique take on horror. You know, when I said about taking words from a very great master of horror, John Carpenter, you have the horror that's within and the horror that's out without, you know, it's outside. And this is where James comes into his own, because he is able to harness the horror that's outside and the horror that's inside so seamlessly that you just can't see where one finishes and the other one begins. And that, to me, is genius writing, and it's a genius way to put a plot together. It truly is. There isn't really, from that time, and to put a story together as well that actually has a real story plot running through it. You know, it's a proper genuine horror, and it really, really is. Other writers have come along, and in the vein of James, I'll pick one for you, Sean Hudson. And don't get me wrong, I love Sean Hudson's work, and his stories read like Italian giallo horror, as in like a film script, to which makes me think he has been heavily influenced by an awful lot of Italian horror. And likewise, why not? It's brilliant. If you've never seen a giallo, please do. You will be pleasantly surprised. Lucio Fulci, Dario Argento, those are the type of people that have influenced Sean Hudson. They really have. And I suppose, to a lesser extent, maybe James as well. But James happens to be slightly different to Sean in the sense that he just puts the right amount of dread and gore into his stories without the dread and gore taking over and becoming more the focal point rather than the actual plot of the said story, which, you know, is what we're here for, right? And if you're just wanting absolute gore and not so much actual plot line, fill your boots with Sean Hudson, because that's kind of what his style of writing is. you know, you're going to get a lot more splatterpunk with Sean than you are with James. Although I'm not saying that you're not going to get splatterpunk with James, you're just going to get more of a storyline sort of behind the splatterpunk. There we go. It's a beautiful nightshirt. I think that will be a little bit too long for me, but I still think it's incredibly pretty. So yeah, there you go. I'm not done yet though. We've only just done the domain. We have the city. We've got the city to do, haven't we? And that is the 4th installment, and it is the graphic novel. Truly stunning artwork. Absolutely. If you ever wanted to really and truly understand what the rats in a post-apocalyptic nuclear world look like, then wonder no more, my darlings, for they are the stuff of legendary nightmare fuel. Standing over 6-7 feet tall. These are big rats. And some are even bigger than that. We take an absolute nightmare fuel trip through the streets of what's left of London, and we get to see red double-decker buses, which are, you know, that screams London, right? Yeah, it really does. And we get to see double-decker buses with the poor people that were happening to be riding on the bus at the time still sitting in their seats with their vacant eyes staring out into nothingness. You can only imagine what their final thoughts must have been whilst they were riding along on a London bus and watching the nuclear warheads flying through the sky. And considering the fact that these ginormous mutated rats were also running around London, not at that point, may I add, they were still underground at the time. It was only after the bombs had dropped that they got out of the lab and went, I was working at the lab late one night when my eyes beheld an eerie sight, and it was the rats. It was the monster rats. Absolutely, when they escaped the lab and decided to go on the free roaming of London, basically. Thank goodness that those poor dear departed souls are not going to live through that as well. There's a lot to be said for going out in the blast, isn't there? Yeah, when you think about it, do you really want to survive if you're knowing that that's what you're going to have to compete with in the survival of the fittest? Exactly. So we get to see all of London in all its great and gory wonderland. Yes, we get to see it all, and it's either painted red, painted black, or like white or greyish in colour. And you don't need anything else to emphasise the absolute brutality of what went on. And the worst part about it is when you get to see what's left of us humans, and this is the shocking part, we've taken on a lot of the rat features, because it seems that there is a little bit of interbreeding going on regarding the new dominant species on the planet. They're finding what's left of us females, and we are willingly producing the rat-human hybrid offspring. I know, I told you it was pure nightmare fuel. It really, really is. And we have a man who we will call the Traveller. And he has come back to London to find his wife and child. So this is obviously a few years after the war of what that was all wars has ended. And he's come back to try and find his wife and child. And he has 2 dogs with him, 2 very special dogs that are like robotic dogs that obviously he's created, and he uses them as like self-defense. And these dogs, James really loved to put dogs in his stories. He really did. And these battle droid dogs are sort of like, I would say, first-rate protection for the travelling man. And you never get to see really his face very clearly until we're sort of into the book. Like when he eventually finds his wife and what's happened to his family, his child. And these dogs are, as I said, they're like robotic dogs. And he sort of has them there to kind of protect him, because as he's entering London, he passes the keeper of the gate. And the keeper of the gate is slightly unhinged. I mean, you know, I think at this point I might be slightly unhinged, to be absolutely fair, because of what's been happening to London and what's been happening, you know, around the rest of the United Kingdom as well. So, you know, he's sort of like yelling to him, be aware, don't go any further, be aware, don't go, turn back now, for what waits for you in there is just so flippin' horrific and so horrendous. You won't want to see it. So turn back now while you still can. And he's like, no, I'm here on a mission, like, and I'm going into London, like, and I can't not go because I've got to go find wife and kid. This lad's obviously spent a lot of time in Yorkshire. He's lost his London accent. So he spent way too long in Yorkshire. And off he trots with his 2 robotic dogs. And it's everything he sees along the way that revulses him and horrifies him, and he just can't believe, honestly, what he's seeing. He just thinks, this can't be flipping real. He's going, flipping Nora, it is real. It's so real. I never thought I'd ever see something as hideous as that. And when he gets to his home and he looks and he sees what's happened, and he's beside himself. He's so upset. He's overcome with grief. And his wife's like, but you're home, darling. Darling, you come home. I wish I'd have known I'd have baked a cake type thing. And he's like, do you know where our daughter is? Because yeah, he's looking for his daughter. And she goes, oh, I left her sat at the kitchen table. She's absolutely fine. Look, define fine. I'll wait. What makes you think that your child is okay? I mean, what gave you that impression? She's as good as gold. She's never moved. Well, that's possibly because she's, no longer with us. She's gone to a better place. She's gone to heaven. That's where she's gone. Far, far away from whatever this hellish existence on earth. And goodness me, God bless that poor child. She has gone to join the choir invisible. The end. And the poor mother doesn't see anything wrong with her child, and she goes, oh darling, while you've been away, I'm afraid I weakened, and I was lonely, so I took the company of another man. Please don't be mad with me. And he goes, oh, it's okay, thinking that, oh well, at least one of the children is still alive. And he thinks, well, it can't be that bad. I'll just take this child and, raise her as my own. And he says, well, can I see the child? So she goes, well, yes, of course. So he sees the child, and he is so ill when he sees the child. It's like the revulsion hits him full on, and he's thinking to himself, this cannot be. This absolutely cannot be. And she's going, but darling, you said you were going to take us away from here to a better place. And he goes, I lass, I am like, I am going to take you away from this place to a better place. And promptly executes her and the baby on the spot, which is a bit brutal, but he honestly cannot live with the fact that what his wife was holding in her arms was a mutant human rat. And that's how we leave him. From this point onwards, I would say our intrepid traveller is not a happy man. He's very, very, very unhappy, and he lets the rest of the world know that too. He goes off, I would say, on a bit of a rampage, and he makes it his mission to find the lair of the Rat Queen, to end her terror reign, and put a little bit of distance between himself and what's happened to his family. Because the poor guy I think he's got PTSD, and I think he's really, really starting to go on a little bit of the crazy train, and he's just about had enough. It was too much, and his poor mind, I'm afraid he's tipped over, and now he's just on the warpath, and he's heading out into the big beyond with the sole intent and purposes of blowing everything to absolute smithereens and taking as many of the rats with him as possible. And the biggest and most epic battle of getting rid of the rats ensues. It really does. It is, I think I'm going to have to just hang on. There. That's a bit better. There we go. There we go. Absolutely brilliant. So off he goes on an epic battle to go to the lair of the big queen, and the big queen, oh, she's waiting, she knows he's coming, my goodness me, and her legion of soldier rats know she's coming as well. Excuse me. Thirsty work. It's a warm Monday morning. Well, Monday afternoon now, actually, darlings. I'm guessing it's around about 1:30. 1:30, and we're halfway through, which is epic. So anyway, back to story time. So off he goes. The queen knows he's coming. The minions of the soldiers, because there's hierarchy. There's always been hierarchy. There's the lower rats, which are the workers. Then there are the soldier rats, which are protectors of the queen. And then we've got Queenie Bobs, who's, guess where she's living? Yeah, St. Paul's Cathedral. You know, down in the crypt. That's where we'll find Queenie Bobs. And off he goes with his bombs, grenades, flamethrower. Mustn't forget that. And well and truly becomes hell on earth. He goes in there. He's on a mission, man. He's on a mission from God, and he is going to raise everything, raise London to the ground. And he does so in spectacular fashion. Everything is on fire. Queenie Bobs is screaming her ever-loving nut off, going running around screaming. And the offspring that she is producing are also all on fire. The soldier ants, they're all on fire, and everybody's running around yelling fire, fire, fire. And we know at that point that the rats are truly, truly gone. They are finally no longer with us, or especially they are no longer with us in London. Whether or not they are anywhere else around the United Kingdom remains to be seen. But we leave the book with the Wanderer leaving London and the gatekeeper yelling, "What's it like in there, Wanderer? What's it like? What's it like?" And he turns around and he dispatches him with what's left of his battle armour. And I think he may still have one dog left with him. I think. But the poor man is absolutely, at this point, is absolutely broken. And he's just left wandering off, a bit like a John Wayne character, going into the distance. Yeah, with what's left of London burning behind him. And that is how we end. And the only reason I've told you all of that is because it is so hard to find a copy of The City. I mean, they're going for absolutely stupid prices, you know. When I got mine a couple of years ago, well, if you know, you know. The first one I received from Amazon, where my husband found it for me, they'd sent it, left it in a paper cardboard, which is what they do, in the middle of a raging storm outside the front door. You can imagine the state it was in, and I felt absolutely, I was heartbroken that these things are rare enough as it is, but to know that they left it on the floor outside in the pouring rain, and you couldn't really open the pages very well, and even though we tried to dry, it had to go back to Amazon as it was destroyed. And that cost £50, just that copy. And I mean, oh dearie Lord, I was so upset. My husband was so upset because it had taken him ages to find it. And fortunately, eBay, we managed to find a copy on eBay, and yet he paid another £70 just for that one. I mean, we were refunded from Amazon for the one that their driver had destroyed. I mean, I don't know what possessed him, you know, to think, oh, I'll leave it outside in a paper thing. Yeah, and I mean, it could fit it through the letterbox. That's the annoying thing. It could have gone through the letterbox and it wouldn't have been damaged. Well, that's Amazon for you. And I did a whole thing on one of my long form videos explaining all about that, in case you're wondering. And you know what? I'm still salty about it. I really am. I'm still annoyed. But I mean, the copy I got it for a reasonable price. So it was between £60 and £70 for the second one. We were refunded for the first one. But now, prices for The City, you're lucky if you can pick one up for around about £100. And that is a graphic novel. And I think because they are getting fewer and fewer, that's why the prices are going through the roof. And I don't even think you can even borrow them from the local library anymore, because I don't even think local libraries are keeping a copy of The City. And it's such a shame, because it's really a beautiful piece of artwork as well as a great story. But that's why I've told you the entire tale, because not everyone is going to be able to read this book. And for that, I am truly sorry. Oh, hang on, I'll be back in a minute. I think the dryer's just done. my darlings. Hello, hello, hello. I had to nip next door and swap over the the ironing, well, the laundry anyway. Get another ironing pile together. And that, my darlings, is all 4 of the Rats books in all their Technicolor gory glory detail. And I haven't really, I hope, spoiled the books too much for you, my loves, because I hope, I really do hope that you've enjoyed the experience. And dare I say, I'm hoping that there is another writer out there, and it was left quite open, wasn't it, with the wanderer just walking off into the distance. Is the challenge going to be accepted? And is there another writer out there that is prepared to pick up their pen and run with it, and perhaps bring us yet another installment into the Rat universe? You don't know, you never know. I hope. I've been hoping for a long time, and I've been waiting for a long time, but surely there is another budding author out there that would be quite happy. Or do you feel as though we've reached perfection and that's it? There shouldn't be another installment. I don't know. You'll have to send me a comment and let me know what your thoughts are. Yeah, but that is all the Rats, all discussed. Now, we're going to go on and talk about another one of James's books, because I love James, and James, it's your day today. I'm thinking about The Fog. As the saying on the back of the book blurb goes, for goodness sakes, don't leave this on Aunt Edna's chair. For very good reason. Very good reason indeed. Aunt Edna, I think she would probably keel over with fright, because there isn't anything that the fog won't make you do. It's a very insidious little glowing orb of death as it spreads across the whole of the United Kingdom. I have also at length done a very good book review on The Fog, and there's quite a few of the vignettes that I discuss within that, but James is certainly tapped into the absolute hopelessness and utter terror that we would basically be succumbing to in this apocalyptic fiction. And he did it so well. He really did. It was absolutely terrifying. And we're going to discuss it in more detail in a few minutes when I have been upstairs to find my pussycat. So this might be a good time for you guys to go and get yourselves a hot drink of tea and maybe a snack of your choice, and give me 5 minutes. I'll leave you running so you can go off and get your tea and your bickies and whatever, and I'll see you soon, and we'll talk about The Fog by James Herbert. then I'll follow you. All right. All right. No writing. I'm not food, Judy. Monty. What a handful he truly, truly is. Now, have you all got a cup of tea? Have you all got a biscuit? Are you all ready for getting on? Hey? Hey, my lovelies? T-shirts. Three shirts. Woohoo! 3 wonderful shirts. Ooh, we're gonna have to really thrash out today. Goodness me, busy. Absolutely busy. I hope that you've all got a cup of tea and that you're all ready to do another apocalyptic masterpiece from the pen of James. Oh yes, we are going to do The Fog. Another government-run disaster of epic proportions. A tiny little village suddenly becomes the epicenter of one of the biggest earthquakes that the United Kingdom has ever seen. Talk about getting an absolute thrashing and all before 9 a.m. in the morning. If that's not bad enough, a tremendously massive plume of gas in the form of a cloud escapes and goes about his business of terrifying the residents of the United Kingdom. I'm going slightly mad. It's just the tip of the iceberg. It really is an epic voyage of the damned and an absolute laid bare horror novel of just exactly what we would do if we had no our inhibitions regarding who we are as human beings. If it just, the level of depravity that we would be able to go to, assuming that we knew that there would be no consequences, what would your ultimate terrors be against you and your fellow man? Well, within the fog, that's what we're about to find out. We are going to hell in such a way that we're all going to look forward to the trip in more ways than one. And there are so many beautiful, glorious vignettes throughout this book that all tie in so eloquently to the beauty and the meat of the entire story. It's apocalyptic fiction at its finest. James manages, as I always say, there are two types of horror, according to John Carpenter: the horror that's within us and the horror that's outside, all around us. And James, in The Fog, manages to harness the two so eloquently that you cannot tell where one ends and the other begins. And that is absolutely pivotal to the entire plot of The Fog. It's not a very long book, but what it manages to encompass within those pages is pure nightmare fuel, absolute sheer terror. I'm going to tell you about the private school and the gymnasium where all the young boys are learning what you can do to another human being with a medicine ball. Now, over here, medicine balls are very, very heavy, round, leather balls which you can throw and catch and throw back. And it's to help build up your muscle tone. Now, once you've seen this, you can't unsee it. But the well, I wouldn't say it was the headmaster, but the gentleman that's in charge of physical education, the PE teacher, John Cleese. Now, if you don't know who John Cleese is, he is one of the founding members of the Monty Python Flying Circus group. Monty Python is where John cut his teeth, and Cambridge, they all met in, I believe it was Cambridge, they all met, and the Floodlight acting sort of organisation that they had there, one of the college fellows, and all the team met there and all got on riotously, brilliantly, and that's who John Cleese is. Now, if this had ever been made into a movie, he is the person I would have picked to play the PE teacher. He is the man I would have chosen to play that role because it suits him so perfectly. The whole, it's a the whole scene is like a descending into Dante's Inferno. These boys and their teacher the day before had all been exposed to the fog. And And although they felt okay at the time, how shall we say, the effects of the fog hadn't started to make itself pronounced until at least 24 hours after the event has taken place. And to say these boys and their teacher are insane is a good way to put it. And they are all basically looking at the best way in which to off themselves and their teacher. And it's how they go about it with a medicine ball. And it is truly the stuff of nightmares. It really, really, really is. And I think that is probably one of the most standout scenes within the book. And it's just absolutely depraved. I can see why this was such a hit with young readers in the late 70s and early 80s. And there really wasn't anything else quite like it out there. And at that point, Sean hadn't started doing his writing career. He would come along with Sean Hudson in a few years, but it was James that sort of like did the trailblazing, if you will. And it's just one of those scenes that is going to live in my head rent-free for the rest of my days. And I just think it's so... If you've ever wondered what private education is like in the United Kingdom, then wonder no more. They do see themselves as an elitist brand, if you will, private boys' schools. And the more upmarket and the more exclusive, the more this type of ordered behaviour is, it's not actively, what should I say, it's not as much actively encouraged as it is shoved on the curriculum. And it's just the thought of the PE teacher being like John Cleese. It really is that bonkers. And well worth a read is The Fog. It really is. It's apocalyptic Britain. It's what we would, as I say, do to ourselves and to each other under the influence of a malevolent entity that has disguised itself as a fog. It is something that the government has created. It was for the battlefield. It escaped out of the laboratory and is now running around the United Kingdom and hanging out at Winchester Cathedral. Of all places it could be found. Who had £10 on the fact that it was going to be found in Winchester Cathedral? Hands up. Who thought it might be? And also in Bayswater in London. It seems to like that area as well. And the Blackwall Tunnel. Yeah, it seemed to like that place as well. Anywhere it could basically lurk out rent-free while sending the inhabitants of the said area absolutely start raving mad. Are you like tempted to read the book yet? You know, you really should. It is absolutely amazing. It is truly amazing, and it's one of those books that's uniquely British in every way. There's loads of really great scenes. There's one, oh gosh, a pilot has realized that his marriage to his wife is all but over. He is a bit of an adulterer and has been having it away with several air hostesses, and his wife, feeling that she could do no more and create no more within her marriage to her husband, basically they went off for the weekend. He thought he was trying to fix the marriage, and she was about to tell him that it was over and that she'd been having an affair with Kevin from the General Post Office. So while they were in their romantic, what he thought was their romantic getaway, they were swamped by a bank of fog and managed to get out of said fog, and felt a little bit headachy and a bit chilled, but thought nothing more of it. And until the next day, when he's about to go off and fly an aeroplane out of London, and he's feeling a little bit giddy and a little bit lightheaded, and he suddenly gets overwhelmed with the urge to kill Kevin, and so takes it upon himself to direct the aeroplane to the General Post Office Tower in London. And as he's bringing his said plane down onto the building, he's maniacally laughing into the intercom back to control and the airport control, the tower. And he's yelling, "What have you got to say for yourself now, Kevin? What have you got to say for yourself now, Kevin?" And all the passengers on the plane that haven't been affected by the fog are basically in their last dying moments, as they know the plane is going to crash and they're all going to die. They are all wondering the same thing. Who the hell is Kevin? And I know that it's meant to be a horror, but quite frankly, that bit was hilarious. And I know it's not meant to be funny, but for me, it was absolutely pure comedy genius. I mean, you know, comedy as in like a really, really dark sense of humor. But I absolutely loved it. I really, really did. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. And if that's not enough to make you read the book, then I don't know what is. There is an audio version of this book that is read by no other than Christopher Lee, who is, in my mind, the king of horror. Didn't he play Dracula so well? And doesn't he have one of those voices that, quite frankly, you could listen to and keep on listening to forever? He's just divine. And when I found that he'd read the version of The Fog, I was like, oh, take my money. Just take my money. I absolutely, Christopher Lee, I adore. He's an amazing, amazing actor. And when he was reading The Fog, It was, yes. And that was a genius move to get him to do the audiobook. Now, I also believe, funnily enough, that all the Rats trilogy, in case you didn't fancy reading, was also available on like an audiobook, but I've never found it. But I do believe that there is a rumor that they are on an audiobook. So I guess I just have to find them. Absolute next level genius though is The Fog, and it deals with a man and, you know, our hero of the hour and his beloved girlfriend, who also happens to get a dose of the fog as well as himself. The poor man gets 2 doses of the fog. The first time he meets the fog is that poor little sleepy village that gets that massive earthquake right at the beginning of the book. And the fog, in its purest form, when it came out from the underground, was neat, right? It was like brand new, fresh, straight out of the lab, and hadn't had a chance to dilute or to basically mix with the rest of the pollution that's within the United Kingdom and turn into something even more hideous than it already was. So the second time round, when he got the second infection from the fog, was when he happened to come across the school bus with all the schoolboys and their teacher on, and because he'd been exposed to the fog before, he sort of like had this like sixth sense in the back of his head that made him realise that, oh, hang about, I've been here before, I know these feelings, and he was instinctively, I'm going to get us out of here right now. This is a very dangerous environment for myself and my girlfriend. And I suggest that we get the school bus out of here and the children as well. And the school bus had broken down, so they had to be rescued by the local police. And the police came to collect the students, but the fog had gone by the time the police got out there, so they weren't infected. But they didn't realise that all the schoolboys had been infected, and the schoolboys at that point didn't realise they'd been infected. If you can follow all that, you've done very, very well. And this boy's girlfriend, anyway, she goes mad. Naturally, of course she does. This stuff's lethal. It's straight out the ground from a government lab. What else is it going to do? And when this man finds out that the government have always known about this, and it's another, tell me it's a government-run program without telling me it's a government-run program. How are we all feeling today? Tickety-boo? Have you seen the fog? No? Well, lucky you. And you see, the fog, it sneaks around the shores and villages of Britain, popping up in the most unexpected places. Like Brighton, for instance. Yes, it takes a trip to Brighton. It fancies going to the seaside and sends everybody mad. And one of the juicy vignettes is when the residents of Brighton all decide en masse to walk out into the sea and drown themselves. And Whitehall is sort of looking at this situation and saying, well, what on earth could could have caused the entire town of Brighton to wake up one morning and then decide all to walk out to sea. And when the actual government finds out that, and this is why everything is very compartmentalised, when the government realises that it's their government that's created this thing in the first place, they're none too pleased about it. And this gentleman that's been infected before and seems to be immune to it, they kind of said, right, okay, we've got some kind of a plan here. We're going to make sure that the fog is got rid of, and you're going to be the one to do it. He doesn't really get a lot of a say in that because he is immune, the only man in Britain to be immune as well, and so he hasn't really got any choice. And so off he goes with his Henry style Ghostbusters vacuum cleaner strapped to his back, and tries to go into Winchester Cathedral to retrieve said fog, and is promptly attacked by all the parishioners and the local vicar for trying to do what the government sent him out there to do. When he comes round in sickbay and explains to everybody what happened, they're like, oh, that really didn't fit into the plan, but yeah, we'll go with it. He says, well, probably the worst thing in the world has now happened, and they all sort of look out of the window and go, oh no, look at London. And a great big blanket of fog has descended upon the capital. And now everybody in London, you have to accept the fact that they're probably all infected and all going super duper looper noopers at this point. So everyone is literally losing their tiny minds, all because of the fog. And the fog is having, the fog's having an absolute ball at this point. It's having a party. It's like, oh, yes, mate, I'm in the capital and I'm going to go around and corrupt as many minds as is humanly possible, and I am going to have a good time while I'm doing it. And this is when it really, really gets off at the races. There are some absolute humdingers of people that are infected. One gentleman realizes what's happened, hopes his family hasn't ingested too much of the fog, and proceeds to make everybody have a glass of water and take vast quantities of sleeping pills. He then has the bright idea of leaving a message outside his front door on his daughter's chalk easel saying how many people are living in the house, their names and their ages, and what he has given everybody to hopefully they will sleep through the worst of what's happening and give the government time to find a cure while they all kind of sleep it off. And that in effect is the kind of plan that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to make sure that the whole of London goes to sleep and remains asleep for the length of time that it's going to take to find a cure. Well, it's a big ask, and not everyone's going to make it. And that, my darlings, is the fog. And I hope you give that one a try. Because it is an absolute brilliant, brilliant novel. It really, really is. I absolutely adore James for his ability to be able to create a story out of everyday things. I mean, you may not know it, but there is another one in the same vein as The Fog, but this one is called The Dark. And it's the darkness that is where the malevolence is. Again, we are in intrepid London, going about our daily business, and at night, that's when all the fun and games starts. Yes. We have a psychic called, his name is Bishop, and Bishop is always trying to prove that the people that are psychic and clairvoyants are all charlatans, each and every one of them. And he doesn't realise that actually they are real because he's one of them. And he doesn't know this. And in the beginning of the book, we see him entering and leaving a house, just a nondescript house on a nondescript street in London. And he has a funny turn, and it makes him feel very, very ill. And he comes out and he's absolutely raving at this point, and he's not a happy boy. And when he finally calms down and the grip of madness has left him, he vows that he's never ever going to set foot in that house ever again. And for a long time he doesn't. And then he's contacted by a renowned, shall we say, clairvoyant physicist, gentleman that can see more than we realize, even though he's blind, right? There was, that sometimes those that have the least senses see more than we do, as is proven throughout the book. Something catastrophic went wrong in this house in a major, major way. And there was a cult with a cult leader. And this cult leader, in order to harness the darkness, managed to create a way for that darkness to come through. In the extreme case of murder, mass suicide, right, the whole thing, that's what it was based on. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, just 9 shirts. Well, that's all right, isn't it, children? We've run out of hangers, everybody. Sadly but true. So, with this depraved act, if you will, the darkness is released. But it can't go anywhere because it's stuck. It's stuck in the house. And because it's stuck in the house, it will stay contained. And suddenly, the house is ordered to be destroyed. And Bishop's like saying, you must never, ever, ever destroy this house. Right. That's his first thought. And then the second thought was, we need to get rid of this house because of all the terrible things that have happened in it. And so the person that owns the house says, right, that's fine. I'll set it ready for, I'll organise someone to come along, a demolition crew, and we'll tear the thing down. Right? What could possibly go wrong? Hold my teacup. Everything that can and does go wrong will go wrong in such spectacular fashion. And every night is going to be worse, than the night before. And many badder things are going to come out of there. And the people that live in London, they don't understand. But at night, they're all going out of their tiny little minds because the dark is coming, my darlings, and it won't stop. And it's after you. And you better run and make sure you're surrounded with lots and lots of light, because if you're not, the darkness will consume you and you will go mad. And then you will go and do things that only mad people can do. Because that is the power of the dark. And again, I have done a very extensive review on the dark. And if that is a book that you fancy reading, may I highly recommend that you do. Absolutely. It is, it's up there. It's in my top 10 favourite James. For a long time, that was my avatar on my channel. It was indeed. Yeah, I definitely recommend it. Oh, 9 more shirts after this, and then a load of bedding. And then we're done. We're done. Hooray, hooray. I know. In fact, you never thought you'd ever get so many James books done on one day. If you fancy something really, really different, again in the vein of a James book, have you thought about reading the Jonah? The Jonah, it's not what, it's who is the Jonah. With a wonderful little policeman who's been sent on a very delicate mission to find out in a very sleepy coastal town with a lad called Jim, who is a policeman, but nobody wants to work with Jim. They see Jim as a little bit of, is everybody that ever goes and does a job with Jim either ends up dead or injured, or just something goes wrong on every single job that Jim works on. So Jim is quite happy to be on his own, and everything on the investigation was doing all right until a female officer rocks up, and she's been sent down by her department, and her job is to make Jim's position look like he is really a bird watcher, right? That's what he's pretending to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I don't know, we might have 30 items here. Anyway, Jim was doing all right. He likes working by himself. He doesn't like having other people working with him. And everything was okay until this female copper turned up. And now it's her job to convince everyone else around them that Jim is down there doing a bird watching research paper on the habits of the local wildlife. And the kingpin, how shall we call him, Lord of the Manor, wants to know if he really is a bird watcher. So he invites him up to his house and sort of invites him in and says, oh, I have one of the nicest sort of bird sanctuary within this local area, and I give you permission to go in there and watch as many birds as you like. And he's sort of like, he's testing out Jim to see if he really is a bird watcher. So he gives him a name of a bird. And Jim goes, oh yes, that's fantastic. Of course, I can't wait to go and see that bird. And this guy now realises that he's not a bird watcher, because the bird that he gave him doesn't even exist. So he's like, yeah, of course you can. Off you trot, Jim. And he's like, yep, he's no more a bird watcher than I am a straight and honest and true, upstanding citizen of the law. So he knows. Unfortunately, our Jim didn't realise that this bird isn't real, and consequently doesn't realise that this cover has been unrolled. The next thing our Jim knows is that he's been taken prisoner by this upstanding member of society, and he's been now held prisoner, if you will, at this guy's rather expensive mansion in the countryside. And consequently, the poor Jim is trying to explain to him, that thank you for, obviously, he said that we all know that you're not a bird watcher. We know that you a criminal gangland boss from London who's looking to cut in on our drug dealing ring. And he says, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an offer that you can't refuse, and you're going to have to join my team. And he says, well, actually, no, I can't. He said, I'm a policeman. He goes, oh, cut the, you're no more a policeman than I am. He goes, no, really, I am a policeman. I really, really am. And this guy's having none of it. He's like, nah, you ain't a policeman. Oh, stop pulling wool over my eyes. Stop lying. Stop fibbing. And he says, until you join my side and give up what you're doing, you are going to be heavily sedated with whatever it is that we're making in his lab underneath his mansion. And this is when things start to go very, very wrong, because, well, you know that he's always been called the Jonah because things go very wrong around our gym. They don't mean to, but they just do. And giving him copious amounts of said influential druggy drews just makes the situation even worse, because that's when we're going to really be at the races. And the thing that causes the curse of the Jonah, well, that comes out, and it's not best pleased with what's happened to Jim. And it's sort of, it's a little deranged, wouldn't we all be if we'd seen something happen to someone that we love, and decides that hell hath no fury. So it sets off in an epic battle of whack-a-mole and let's destroy everything here, and so causes the biggest tidal wave to ever hit the British shores and annihilates the entire sleepy little coastal town. But it's not happy with having done that, and it decides it wants to do a little bit more redecorating, and decides that it's going to scare the whatsits out of the drugs lord and his minions, because if they did not know who the Jonah was before they'd given Jim copious amounts of this drug of their choice that they make, they were going to find out afterwards. And let's just say they're not very pleased with the situation, and they are absolutely terrified, and with good reason. I'd be absolutely terrified if this thing was after me as well. And what makes it even worse is that poor Jim is so stoned out of his brains, he doesn't know what's going on. He can't understand. All he keeps trying to do is say, but I'm not a drugs lord, I'm really a policeman. It's like it's stuck on a broken record. And they're all right, yeah, look, right, mate, at this moment in time, we don't give a hoo-ha who you are, where you've come from, or what. All we want to know is how on earth do we stop what started? Yeah, good point. How are we going to stop it? And thus ensues their demise. Oh, indeed. What is the Jonah? What is its purpose? Can you all escape in time? You're going to have to read the book and find out. You see, I just love horror. I absolutely do adore horror. And today you had 4 7 of James's books. 7 darling James books. And don't you just love a scary story? And again, you'll not find anything else out there that's quite like the Jonah. It's a unique experience. I love it. It's one. When Monty was a really teeny tot of a kitten last year in April, that's when I was reading the Jonah. And it was like a trip down memory lane. I could see my little Monty curled up on his back, snuggled up to me while I sat on the sofa reading this novel, purring away like he did, because he's like that, he's Monty. He's hilarious, is Monty. And I was really, really enjoying it. Excellent choice of book. Really, really was. Crikey. We're doing all right. We're doing just fine. Just a few more shirts to do and a little bit of bedding. But as it's 10 to 3, we better get a move on. Otherwise, we're not going to be going out at the right time tonight. So I will bid you a fond farewell. And I shall be back tomorrow with hopefully some more of my favourite horror and apocalyptic books. Take care, my darlings.